Hello and welcome to another jam-packed episode of My Favorite Conservative. I am Edward.
And I am Andrea, but I am not conservative. No, you know this.
All right.
But he is my favorite conservative.
Thank you.
He is,
Thank
yes.
you. Wow. Well, welcome to season 3, episode 1 of My Favorite Conservative.
That's right. We took a break for a few weeks.
We did travel, all kinds of stuff going on.
Yes.
But basically, we are back here starting season 3 today to be with you the whole time through the 2024 election to help all of us figure out and understand right all the noise that's going on out there.
So that is going to be our main focus. So we're going to start each broadcast with the latest polling numbers, and we're going to be very consistent in which polls we bring you and not throw too many numbers at you at one time. If you want to skip the polls, just fast forward 5 minutes. And after the polls, we'll do our normal show format, but we are going to be focusing on different issues that will affect the election. So are you ready?
Let's jump right to it.
Okay.
Yeah. What polls are we going to be following?
So my favorite, we're going to be following Real Clear Politics Average as our benchmark. It's a good benchmark because they look at all the polls, and we'll look at Trump versus Biden and national polls along with the swing states that played such a huge role in the outcome of the 2020 election.
Okay. Yeah, those toss-ups are Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We'll start on the East Coast. Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia.
Can't believe Georgia's a toss-up, but go ahead.
Move to the Midwest. We've got Michigan and Wisconsin.
Yes.
And then it's Wisconsin.
Okay.
Thank you. And then we move out west for Nevada and Arizona.
Again, can't believe Arizona's a swing state, but yeah.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay.
What do we have?
In the national average, again, Real Clear Politics, national average, Trump versus Biden. Trump is up 0.3. Not 3 people, 0.3. So that's a wash as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Now, the polls do range from Trump +8 and Rasmussen and Biden +4 and Reuters. There it is. Okay. So the average is 0.3. Again, just a wash.
That's an interesting number, but let's take a look at the battleground states because that's where it's all going to go down.
Absolutely. And I really highly recommend, we're going to put this in the show notes. I found the coolest website. It's called 270 to win, 270 to win. And it's an electoral map and it's interactive. So you really get to play around with it.
Cool.
It's really cool. All right. So let's talk about some of these.
All right. Let's start with, we're throwing in numbers here, but we'll try to go very slowly with them. Let's start in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
All right. Biden is currently in the lead there by 0.4%.
Which is nothing.
No.
Especially since he's supposedly from there. So
it's Scranton Joe.
Yeah. Again, so I would say that's a wash.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move down a little bit farther south and go to North Carolina.
Yep.
Trump up 4.8%.
That's significant.
That's outside the margin of error. So yeah, that's usually 3% is the margin of error on most of these polls.
All right.
Let's go a little deeper south into Georgia. And we have Trump at +4%.
Okay.
Again,
so he's
outside
doing well
the margin of error, doing well.
US.
You want to take the Midwest?
Sure. So in Michigan, Trump is up 3 points in Michigan. Again, that is within the margin of error. In Wisconsin, Trump is up 2 points.
There you go.
All right.
Let's go out west.
Okay.
Trump in Nevada is up 4.8%.
Okay. These are percent or points? I've been saying points.
Well, points.
Okay. All right. Okay. Just making sure. Right. I get it.
And in Arizona,
Trump
is up 5.
Yeah, that's significant.
Basically, with our 7 battleground states that we're looking at, Trump has the lead in all but Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And that's basically tied.
Yes. And I just want to say, so I had so much fun with 270 to win. You're welcome for the shout out. So I decided to look at the states where Trump was leading by at least 4. So I played around with the electoral map and I gave North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona to Trump. And he would still need either Michigan or Wisconsin. He would still, now he's leading right now in both of those, but he would still need either one of those. He could lose Pennsylvania and still win the election.
Yeah, he was what, like 3 shy or something when you did that?
Yeah, it was close.
And the problem is if you're you just need 3, but unfortunately, there are only bigger states like a Michigan or Wisconsin, that have 10 or 11 each.
Right.
You got to win one of them. There's no like 3 out there that's up for grabs.
It's going to be a nail biter, right? I think it's going to be a little bit. Well, I don't know. Who knows? A lot can happen between now and November. What am I talking about?
Absolutely. So,
all right. So, what is welcome? And we see a lot of people watching live. Welcome. Feel free to comment. We are streaming live on YouTube, X, Facebook, Rumble, and why did I forget one? I don't know. What's the other one? Oh, shoot. YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and
LinkedIn.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Okay. Right. So on most of those platforms, not all, you can comment in real time if you're comfortable, and we'll share the comments. So, right. So what is our topic for this week?
Well, we're actually going to stay with the theme of polling today.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah. But, I saw this past week an amazing poll came out that I think is going to play a huge role in the election. And it's from Axios, which is definitely not a conservative publication at all. And it was Axios with the Harris Polling Group.
Okay.
And the Harris Polling Group is run by a guy named Mark Penn. Mark Penn is as inside Democrat polling politics as you can get.
Okay, Edward. Okay. Thank you for that inside baseball. But what was the title of the poll?
Well, let's go. The title is Exclusive Poll, America Warms to Mass Deportations.
Woo! And we will put a link to this in the show notes.
Mass deportations.
Yes.
Something that used to be never even discussed on the list.
That's true.
At all.
That's true.
As there's no way you can deport 10 million people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So share it with us.
Yeah, the article's by Margaret Talov and Russell Contreras, and we'll have a link in the show notes for it. And we'll start slowly. It says half of Americans, including 42% of Democrats, say they would support mass deportations of undocumented immigrants.
And if you don't know how we would accomplish that, please look at our last episode of season 2. Edward could be the new immigration czar. It was amazing. Wow. He did. He had quite a plan. So what I think is really interesting about this poll is they broke it down in they have the general public, which was 51%, but they broke it down in 3 buckets: race and ethnicity, political affiliation, of course, and then generation. So why don't you give us the breakdown of, I want to do the last one. So why don't you do the first 2?
Well, let's start with the general public first. It's 51%.
I said that.
I know. I'm just reiterating here that that is a huge number. Yes. This number used to be maybe in the 20s.
Yeah.
A few years back. 51% of the general public now think we need to mass deport millions of illegals here, and I can't tell you how excited that makes me, obviously.
Okay, all right.
But let's break it down into race and ethnicity.
Yep.
Whites tend to support it at 56%, a little higher than the national average. Latino, or as our Democrat friends would say, Latinx.
Yes, let's not go there today.
They are at 45%. That's a huge number, considering you're talking about deporting millions of Latinos.
Well, not just Latinos, but people,
the vast majority.
But Latinos who come here legally are really pissed off about illegal immigration.
Yes, that is the point. Is the Latinos that are here are saying, you know what, we did it the right way.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you waited in line for years and years, I can understand that. And the last category they break down into is our blacks. The black population here says 40% of the black populace says return millions of illegals.
Yeah, so it's
I'll
huge.
take that.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
That is very big.
Give us. I don't think the second bucket, political affiliation, is any surprise, but give us those numbers as well.
Yeah, so Republicans favor it at 68%.
Yeah, not shocking.
No, not at all. Democrats at 42%.
That's gone up.
That is up. Yeah, that's usually in the low 30s. And independents are at 46%.
And we independents, I'm talking about me and all of you out there, we're going to decide this election. Ooh. Let's be really clear.
We are. A club or something?
Yeah, we
Great independence in history.
Shut up. Okay. I shouldn't have said that on the air. That was mean. All right. My favorite, though, bucket
Oh,
Generations.
You love generations.
I do. I'm
Yeah.
obsessed. I'm obsessed with talking about Generations. Great book. So baby boomers support this. 60% baby boomers. That's your generation.
Not surprisingly.
Yeah. Gen Xers, that's my generation, 53%. Millennials, this is shockingly high, 48%.
Now, millennials are who
that's your
for me, people that don't give a crap about generations.
Okay, baby boomers, 1945 to 65. Generation X is now considered like 1940 or 1966 to like 1980-ish. Millennials used to be generally 1980 to 2000. That's kind of changing, but they're getting tighter in terms of like, basically your kids are millennials.
Okay.
Your kids are millennials.
All right.
And then Gen Z, which is, again, kind of changing. It's eating into the millennials, but Gen Z used to be generally you were born in this century, you're Gen Z. And they supported 35%.
Yeah, that's stunning that you're seeing, I bet you, I don't have the number in front of me, but I would guarantee you a few years back, a younger person would have been about 6 or 7% of mass deportations. Yeah.
Well, what I find interesting, and we can't do a deep dive on this, but I can talk about this all day long, is that they are finding that Gen Z is one of the most conservative generations in like 100 years.
Sweet.
Yeah. So,
well, yeah, the tide's turning, whatever your parents were or your grandparents, they want to go back against that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So 30% of Democrats, as well as 46% of Republicans, say they would end birthright citizenship.
Wow. That's the 14th Amendment, folks.
Yeah, so, yes. Which I think would be really hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you need 2/3 of the states and everything else. However, that's a big number.
It is, yeah.
That falls under everybody gets upset when I say it, but the anchor babies, where people come here to have babies to anchor themselves to this country.
Right.
It was originally meant for slaves that were freed.
Yeah.
And all of their children would be considered American citizens. It has been bastardized.
And no other Western country has this policy, by the way.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Zero. Yes.
Yeah. You can't just fly over to England, have a baby, and then become a citizen. That's not how it works there. So
yeah, but from the article it says President Biden is keenly aware the crisis threatens his re-election. He sought to flip the script by accusing Trump of sabotaging Congress's most conservative bipartisan immigration bill in decades.
Okay, time out. How can Trump sabotage Congress when Trump is not in elected office right now?
Well, what they're talking about is there was a supposedly, air quotes, bipartisan bill that went up for vote just a little bit ago. James Lankford from Oklahoma led the Republican effort.
Okay.
And by the time they got to a deal, it was so bad. This was the deal where they would allow like between 5,000 and 8,000 illegals a day before the president could do anything about it. So you could still let in at least 5,000 people a day completely free into the country without this kicking in. And in fact, that James Lankford that I talked about actually voted against his own bill. And they're saying that President Trump pressured the Republicans.
I see. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. That was the answer to my question. I wanted you to get there.
We got to walk through it.
No, yes. I know. Yeah. What I also love about this is 32% of respondents of this poll say it's Biden's administration that is most responsible for the crisis, outranking any other political or structural factor. That's a big duh as far as I'm concerned.
How that's not like 90.
I know. And Trump has said that he will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
Yeah.
I don't think that's everything that he's running on, but he has said that.
Right. And if you remember, very quick aside, back to our last episode, we returned 1 million Mexicans back to Mexico back in the 50s. So
yeah.
Yes, it can be done.
Yeah, it can be. You have to have the will to do it.
Yeah,
yes.
But Americans typically aren't eager to deport immigrants who have put down roots in the U.S. But the poll of over 6,200 adults suggests that the dynamic may be changing amid fears about crime and violence. What?
Yeah. So when asked to identify what their greatest concerns were around illegal immigration, and again, this is over 6,000 Americans cited increased crime rates, drugs, and violence. Let's not pretend the cartels don't exist. They do. The additional cost to taxpayers, absolutely, and the risk of terrorism and national security. And if you think only families are coming across the border, then you're not watching the cameras live.
Yes.
Watching the cameras live. So I think all three of those are legitimate concerns.
Yes, and thousands, excuse me, thousands of single male Chinese are coming here.
I know, across
Now,
the
just
border.
as another aside, you don't just walk out of China, go to Mexico, and come here.
Nope,
Excuse me,
not,
unless
the government said it was
correct.
okay.
You cannot leave China unless the government says, yeah, go on and do what you're going to do over there.
Yeah.
So something going on for sure. So
the survey found that Americans strongly support immigration as long as it's lawful. And we do too, guys. We do too. And illegal immigration is what's giving people so much anxiety.
Yeah, that kind of pisses me off, that statement there.
Why?
Americans strongly support immigration as long as it's lawful. We have always said that. As people on the far right, anything, it doesn't matter. Immigration is great.
Yeah.
Controlled immigration, fine.
Legal.
Bring in the people. Just remember, rule number one about immigration is it has to be a benefit to the host country.
Yeah.
That's number one, and that should be number one in everybody's mind. So, but yeah, everybody's always said, as long as it's lawful, we can control it, no problem.
I just want to, and before you give more numbers from this poll, I just want to throw out that my father, if he's watching, I don't know if he is, I doubt it, but he has listened to one episode. My father has been looking at places to relocate in his golden years, and finding it extremely difficult to relocate as an expat, whether it's Europe, whether it's South America, Central America. It's not easy. You can't just walk right in. That's not how it works.
Well, that, and and he's a little bit older too, and obviously they don't want you on their healthcare system.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And yet we give our healthcare to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Ask California. So
yes.
But
so give us some of these numbers.
Yeah. So we're talking about supporting immigration as long as it's legal.
Yep.
All right. 58% said they support expanding legal pathways for orderly immigration.
Okay.
While 46% said asylum seekers should be protected if their cases are legitimate.
And that's the key word.
Well, right. Remember, the UN compact on this says that you have to seek asylum in the nearest safe country. Right. And we went over that in our last show.
We did.
That if you're from, I don't know, the Congo, the first country
is not the U.S.
Safest close country is not the United States.
No, it's not.
Yeah, so, it's crazy.
All right, so 68%, again from this poll, said illegal immigration is causing major problems in communities, while only 27% said the same about legal immigration. So 68% is a significant number.
Yeah.
And cities are just getting overwhelmed.
Well, people are seeing, the people that live there are seeing what is happening.
Yeah.
And you're seeing, I listen to different programs during the week and things. And quick example in New York, in terms of looking the other way, there's all kinds of immigrants there that are now like selling all their food and everything right on the street corners and in the subways in Ziploc baggies and things like that.
Really?
Whereas, oh yeah. And the police look the other way.
Well,
and if you were
arrest them, yeah.
But if you were a native of New York or whatever, and you tried to start selling stuff and using children to sell stuff, you'd be picked up and charged with child abuse and everything else. So,
yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so there's a big difference between illegals and what the legals are getting here.
Yeah.
But this next one here, this really jumps out at me, and not in a good way. It said 65% of Americans think the U.S. should make it easier for anyone seeking a better life to enter legally so they don't need to enter illegally. Now, our immigration system is not built around, hey, if you want a better life, just come here. It is more on, we have certain programs for that. That's fine. But it is built on refugee status, that you're being politically persecuted and you're afraid of that. If we said anybody who wants a better life should come here, what are there, 8 billion people in the world right now?
Yeah.
What would we have, 6.5 or 7 billion here?
I don't know. A lot of people hate America. I think you're wrong on that. I think,
well, we would have well over 1 billion, of which we really don't
I don't know about that. But I will say that all the people that, and we're not talking about this today, but all the people who are, that have love, have love for Hamas and hate America, you can leave. Like, go ahead. That would make more room for immigrants who want to be here.
Yeah, I do find it fascinating that there's now our two-party system in terms of Democrats and Republicans. One is Death to America Party, and the other is Make America Great Again. Kind of a big difference there.
Yeah.
Right. And I actually feel bad for some of the Democrats now trying to thread that needle of trying to appease somebody who's shouting death to America.
Yes. And I'm going to give the bottom line from the article. This is according to Penn. He said the trade-off here in the poll is people will take expanded legal immigration if they saw a crackdown on the border.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Send us your best and brightest.
Yeah. Oh, please. Yes.
Do we need millions of absolutely uneducated,
unmotivated,
unskilled laborers? We don't.
Not anymore.
Our farming communities are not, 100 million people out picking things in the fields. They're not. They're automated. They're everything else. And I was just reading an article this past week about our school system and these kids that are coming. So many of them have never even been in a school, and they're 10 years old.
Heartbreaking.
Well, how do you do that in your school now? How do you take a 10-year-old and start to teach him at a first grade level? And how do you have the resources for this?
Well, right? I will tell you a quick aside. When I worked as a teacher in a variety of capacities, and one of my first jobs was working at a program that was a pilot program for a school in Southern California and LA Unified. And this was back in the 90s when they had bilingual education. And I couldn't understand it. And there was a lot of money, by the way, in bilingual education. And I couldn't understand, because children are like sponges. It is so much easier to learn another language, to learn, period, when you're really young. And it was so sad because when the kids came to our pilot program, if they were selected for it, we only spoke in English, even though my coworker spoke fluent Japanese and some Spanish. We only spoke in English. And more than one student said to us, we wish we could speak English all the time, but because they were in bilingual education, their classes were in Spanish. And they didn't want that. And so, I kind of got off track here, but we don't have the mechanism to support it. And bilingual education failed. That's why they phased it out of schools, especially in Southern California, because they showed that it was failing children.
Yeah. Let's expand on this a little bit more. We've got some time here. I think the Black community, I think the Latino community is incredibly upset with the Biden administration and Democrats in general, because Democrats run all of these big cities that we're talking about.
They do.
Right?
That's true.
No question. And they are seeing millions and billions of dollars being spent on these people. Now, where did this money come from before all these illegals came here, when there were people that were, needed housing and everything else? And now it miraculously appears when you've got all of these illegals here. How would you feel about that?
I would be resentful. I think I've spoken about this on a previous episode where at a time in my life, I asked for government assistance and was denied it. Yeah. So.
Yeah. A couple of small asides. I was seeing some stuff out of Chicago, and you've got Black women standing up in these city council meetings, screaming about how the Democrats are letting them down, and they'll never. Yeah, it's just people.
And remember, you can vote people out of office. Get them out. Get them out. So,
amen.
Now, Biden can still consider doing an executive order to stem illegal border crossings. The man opened the floodgates. He's the one that did it. So if he wants to try to close it now, I think it's a little too late. I think it's a lot too late, but he can. And you were right, by the way.
Yes.
I know. Actually, no, I need to preface that for our audience. Okay. Because Edward, I don't agree with him on everything, on most things. But he said our cat would join, and I was determined that she would not join, and sure enough, she did. So
she did.
So if I'm sweating bullets here, it's because I got a very hot cat in my lap. So it has nothing to do with my age. Nothing.
No. Never.
All right.
Never.
Anything else on this topic today, Edward, before we get to the fun stuff?
Oh, goodness. I could go on about immigration forever.
I know. So, but each week we're going to deal with a topic that's going to have an impact on the election. So,
absolutely.
All right. So we are still doing our very fun segment this week in Woke. And what do we have today?
Well, this will be fun because Andrea has a background in the theater.
I do.
Shall we say. And by the way, she now is doing stand-up comedy.
Oh, I can't believe you're outing me. Yes. I am doing it a little bit, yes.
You've done it in Los Angeles. You're doing it in Birmingham.
Yes.
And so, so this story
You're making me blush.
All right. This is from our friend Olivia Murray at the American Thinker.
You outed me. We're going to link it to you in the show notes, Olivia.
Yes.
All right.
Headline is Democrats introduce the STAGE Act, a $1 billion per year cash infusion so artists can find out who they are and become themselves.
And this is what the writer said. I get to read the fun part. Oh, no. All the losers with lesbian theater degrees can't find jobs since they settled on an education that has no applicability in the real world. And what's worse is that they're artists, so they can't be expected to work a 9-to-5 or stifle their creativity with a boring conventional job, even though that's where the money is. So that's from the writer. That's not from me personally, as you said, as a former actress.
Yes.
And STAGE is an acronym.
It's an acronym, yes.
Yes.
And we'll get to that. It says, this is from NBC News. They originally wrote this story. Okay. Democrats fret it could be curtains for local theaters without federal funds.
Okay.
4 years after it began, COVID-19 is in the rearview mirror for millions of people and hundreds of businesses across the U.S., but not for some theaters that require federal funding, according to some Democratic lawmakers.
Okay. Professional nonprofit theaters haven't recovered from the pandemic, with dozens of stages to shut around the country without urgent infusions of cash. Now, a group of Democrats in Congress say the show must go on, very cute guys, and is introducing legislation that would keep the curtains from closing. Boy, they are just throwing in all the puns. Like, oh my gosh, come on.
Pun heavy.
Yes. Yeah.
The Supporting Theater and the Arts to Galvanize the Economy Act, or STAGE.
Very clever acronym. I'm going to give it to you.
Supporting Theater and the Arts to Galvanize the Economy, because nothing galvanizes the economy like a bunch of actors, right?
Hey.
Would allocate $1 billion annually to invest in the industry, helping community theaters pay rent, employ artists, and attract new audiences. Okay, here's my question. And this is a very serious question because why do federal funds need to go to theaters? Let's forget constitutionality right now. Where was this money for, I don't know, keeping small restaurants open that were required to close? How many families went completely bankrupt during COVID, but yet we still have to save the community theaters?
I agree. And, as a former actress, I have very mixed feelings about government supporting the arts. I do believe in the National Endowment of the Arts, but I also understand people who art is very subjective. I know some people think it's not. It is. Art is subjective. Whatever medium it is, it doesn't matter. It's very subjective. And I understand people not wanting their taxpayer dollars to go to something that they don't agree with. That I truly understand. But yeah, this does seem, even for me, a bridge too far, because I agree with you. Where was the support for restaurants? I mean,
for small shops, small hardware stores.
Yes.
You could go to Home Depot, but you couldn't go to Joe's hardware store down the street.
We live in an area that's very, very old, and the houses were built at the turn of the 20th century and have been very gentrified. And before the pandemic, we could walk 2 blocks to restaurants, art galleries, one of the oldest, no pun intended, oldest vintage stores in Birmingham. Everything shut down and has not recovered.
Yeah.
And none of those restaurants came back. So, and many of those storefronts are still shuttered, and there's nobody there.
And as to the constitutionality of it,
yes,
where in the world does the federal government come in to fund arts? Okay, there's if you lefties can show me in the Constitution where it says that if a state wants to do it, if a city wants to do it, no problem, because that's what the 10th Amendment is, that anything that there are limits, very strict limits on what the federal government can fund.
And that, that's one of the best things. I directed theater. That I actually was a much better director than I was an actor, but I directed theater and I did some sort of regular theater, but I did some what would be considered community theater.
Mm-hmm.
And what was great about it is the community supported the theater. The patrons supported the theater. That's what kept the doors open.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk this past week about NPR and PBS, right?
Yeah.
With they have a new CEO, and if you recall, that writer or one of the producers has been there for 25 years. He wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about how leftists that they've become.
And we supported him on X.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's absolutely 100% correct. My thing is,
don't forget he was fired.
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course. Yes. That was just waiting for the axe to fall on that one. Yes. But NPR, PBS do not need federal funds. If rich donors want to send their money to them to keep them alive, fine. If Big Bird, everybody says, well, we have to cancel Sesame Street. Really? You know how much merchandise they sell from?
Well, that's a good point.
From Big Bird has his own theme park. I mean, seriously.
Does he really?
Oh yeah. and it's, my gosh. Just somehow try to run an actual business.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going to finish with what the writer said. This is funny. Now, I don't have a problem with artists living alternative lifestyles. If a person wants to be a stinky 2024 hippie who doesn't shave, sports neon hair, forgoes shoes, pierces his or her face, smokes pot, and finds him or herself by embracing a transient lifestyle, be my guest. Seriously, go for it. I just don't want to pay for it.
Amen. Yeah. Olivia Murray, the author on that one. Yeah. Be yourself. Don't expect us to support you.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you remember? Let me a quick aside here.
Oh no.
During one of the.
I worry when he says quick aside.
During one of the government shutdowns, or the economy was tanking under Obama, and
he came into a tanking economy.
Well, unemployment claims were going way up and everything. And Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House at the time, and she wanted to give more money to people because it's actually good for the economy, and you can take time off and write and be a poet. And
she actually said that?
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. And it's like, yeah, that's how we're gonna just really get the economy cranking, is give people money. Right.
All right. So those of you who joined us live, thank you for joining us live today. And please be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. We are going to be live almost every single Sunday from now until the election at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Rumble, LinkedIn, X, and Facebook. If you are listening to the podcast, which always drops on Monday, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening right now. And we did take the last few weeks off, and I personally am still working on our locals community because we want you to have a safe space where you can comment, because we see you watching and we understand that commenting publicly could be a little scary. We get that.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
And that'll be an episode, I'm sure. It's our surveillance state. Yes.
Yes, that is going to be an episode.
Yeah.
So please learn more. You can follow us, find all the socials, all that good stuff on myfavoriteconservative.show. That's myfavoriteconservative.show.
All right. Thanks for listening to the rants.
All right. Welcome back. Season 3.